lead vocalist with Hips, to the show. Hi there.
Hi, Tom.
Now, listening to that, does it take you back to those days in the 1980s in Glasgow?
It does. Well, my memory isn't what it should be, probably. But, yeah, it was a great time.
If you can remember the 80s, you probably weren't really.
Yeah, it was a great time to be in Glasgow, I think.
There was so much happening. I mean, I can remember it with a lot of affection, and there was just so much music about, and so much interest in the music from all over the world, I think, as well.
Yeah, on the back of Postcard and stuff like that. It was just, we kind of jumped off their backs and kept going. It was brilliant. Simple Minds were happening, all that sort of thing as well.
It's funny the affection that's obviously Hipsway are still held in. I was just noticing that, perhaps you have a warehouse full of this, in fact. A certain beer company in Scotland produced two beers, one called Hipsway, one called the Honey Thief.
That's right, yeah, the Williams brothers, yeah. Is it okay to say that?
Well, you've said it
I
now.
know, sorry.
I wasn't going to say it, but never mind. I mean, did you get a few free samples?
I got a few. A warehouse, I think, is pushing it. But every
just
night,
a small container load.
I see the guy every now and again, and he loves me a few bottles every now and again.
And was he just a fan? Was it just because he enjoyed
the
band?
Yeah, he liked the band, and he's just like he's quite a creative guy, and I think that this whole sort of beer thing's
the microbrewery
it's a bit of
beer.
a subculture going on with it. There's a few bars in Glasgow now that pretty much that's all they sell, and he seemed to think it'd be a good idea to use those two names, and I thought that was nice, so I just took it as a compliment, and I took responsibility. I didn't ask anybody else that was in the band if that was okay, so I haven't heard anything negative back yet. So
no, it's funny. It's an interesting choice of beers though, because one of them's a strawberry beer and one of them is obviously a honey-based beer, but. Interesting.
Yeah, at first I liked the Honey Thief one better, but now I think I like the Hipsway one.
All right. Well, I think that's enough.
Yeah.
Enough product placement for the moment.
I must say I don't get anything out of this apart from a few bottles. That's it.
Okay. Thinking back on, looking back on those times in Hipsway, and I know that there was a period of your own life when you just didn't do those songs anymore, and you felt uncomfortable with that, a part of your past.
Yeah. I think it was just because nobody was paying much attention to the other stuff that I'd done, and I found that a bit irritating. Let's put it that
because
way.
You were involved with a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
There was Cowboy Mouth is probably the most recent thing before the Skinner Group.
Yeah, I mean,
and there were other bands like Witness as well.
Yeah, I've done a lot of music that most people have never heard, and it kind of frustrated me for a while, but with age and time, I've learned to accept that people like what they like, and you can't make people do what they don't want to do. So now I've decided to embrace it with a view to hopefully letting them hear some new stuff as well.
And was there a moment when you just decided, right, because the title of this new album, Back in the Horse, gives a real sense of willingness to embrace music once more and sort of go on with it. I mean, was there a moment when you just decided, right, that's what I'm going to do?
There was. I can't exactly remember what it was, but I do remember I just thought I'd sort of been saying no. I'd been asked to do stuff by a number of people, and I kept saying no. I've stopped doing music, and
I mean, that's a big decision to stop doing music, isn't it? It's somebody who was so successful as well.
I know. When I look back on it now, I can't believe that I did that, or said that, or thought that.
See, when you stop doing, you say you've stopped doing music. Does that mean you don't play the guitar?
Yeah.
You just sort of turn your back on it completely.
This might sound, pretentious or whatever, but there was a point when I actually found singing painful, not like physically painful,
not
mentally painful. So I just sort of stopped doing it, and then I think it was once I came back to live in Glasgow actually that I decided to
because you'd been living in London, hadn't you?
Yeah, and I'd done probably about 2 albums worth of stuff that nobody's ever really heard apart from a couple of tracks. And then I played bass in a band, and I sort of co-wrote and produced that band, and they've done a couple of albums since then. But I thought this stuff's great, but nobody's really shares those opinions, and I thought, well, what am I doing this for? I'm not getting any attention or.
Cowboy Mouth was getting quite a lot of critical attention, wasn't it? I mean, you were signed to Marina.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
and
sorry, Tom.
Can you go?
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem with that was I was in London and everybody was up here in Glasgow, so there was a disconnect between me and the band. So it was difficult to keep it rolling along.
Sure.
So that was the only thing about that. But
well, look, tell me about the Skinner Group and how that gets together, because there's a lot of familiar names there. People like Douglas McIntyre, who's co-written, I think, with you most of the songs.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Glasgow supergroup kind of thing. It's 80s sort of a group anyway. Got Mick Slavin on lead guitar. He played with Delamitri for a while, and he's in a great band called The Leopards, which is his band.
And that's the band that were backing Lloyd Cole, actually.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. Campbell Owens, who was in Aztec Camera, and he's also in The Leopards. Douglas, of course, who's played with so many people. Cowboy Mouth, of course, Love and Money. Gordon Wilson, who's in Love and Money, and he's currently playing with Susan Boyle.
That's right, I saw him in the documentary, in fact.
Yeah. So all
not that I tune into every Susan Boyle documentary that's on the television.
Yeah, I meant to watch that. I never saw it.
It was fascinating. Yeah. Absolutely fascinating.
I wish I'd seen it.
Now, as far as the band's concerned, this album is digital release only, I think, at the moment, isn't it?
At the moment, I'm waiting on some CDs coming through from the manufacturer. We'll be selling them at gigs and stuff, and probably put them on Bandcamp, and maybe hopefully get them into FOP and places like that.
And hopefully some vinyl, because surely
I'd love to get some vinyl. It is a financial commitment, though. That's the problem.
It's a major business, right? It is. But anyway, we're going to play a couple of tracks from the new album, and first of all, this is one of my favourites, Bacharach, You Gave Me Love.
You wanna say a little prayer. You live in a land of make-believe. You wanna die, you close your eyes. You ought to take a little easy on yourself. The way that you look at life is dragging you down. Nobody loves clown with a frown. Feeling so guilty when you've done nothing. Bacharach, you gave me love. You gave me bacharach. You gave me love. Now anyone who had a heart would make themselves over to your plight. I'm making rhymes in troubled times, and you've gone way past your breaking point. You said it's love that really counts. I wanna be your tower of strength. This empty place will drag you down. Everyone needs someone to love. It's like a curse, feeling so guilty when you've done nothing. Whoa, nobody loves a clown with a frown. Not like you don't have enough to bear. Bacharach,
What a great song that is. That's Baccarat, You Gave Me Love by the Skinner Group, featuring Graham Skinner on lead vocals, and that's from the new album, which is called Back on the Horse. And Graham's with me live right now. That is a brilliant song, actually, Graham. Isn't it? All those great quotes, both musical and lyrical.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the idea to call it Baccarat came from the music, because we had the music sort of written before, and we, like yesterday was called Scrambled Eggs because he didn't know what to call it at the time, and we just thought that we were calling that Baccarat because the chord suggested Baccarat, and then it ended up
yes,
being called
sir,
Baccarat.
I can boogie.
I remember that as well.
And tell me about the process of doing this now. I mean, it must be very different from your days in Hipsway when, because now you're doing it, as you've said, because of your love for music. And I'm not suggesting you weren't in love with music during Hipsway, but I mean, that was a kind of whole different scale of things, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, certainly when I was back in Hipsway, you're four young guys who are you're just desperate for excitement and success, and you're not really thinking so much about your craft and stuff. Certainly I wasn't anyway. I was as much concerned about having a good time as I was about writing songs. It kind of came quite naturally, fortunately. But now it's, much more about just doing something that you really can feel proud of. Whether or not it's successful or not matters not that much anymore. I'm just doing it because I love it.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask you about something which, again, is a bit of a passion of yours and Douglas McIntyre's. And I was absolutely fascinated when I found out about this, because it's one of the great kind of musical mysteries of Frank Sinatra's career. And that's an album called Watertown. Can you tell me what your involvement is with this, and just about the album itself as well? We're going to play a track from it in a minute.
Well, it's a Frank Sinatra album. It's a kind of concept album.
It's really obscure, isn't it? It wasn't a success for him.
Most people don't. Everybody knows Frank Sinatra, but I doubt 99% of people that know Frank Sinatra have ever heard of this album. But it's great. It's not like a really. It's almost like a rock album in a way. No, it's not. But it's written by one of the guys that wrote for the Four Seasons, and it's got a thread through it, every song. It's about a guy whose wife leaves him and he's left with the kids, which is kind of opposite from the normal narrative, I would imagine. And it was introduced to me by a guy called Stefan, who runs Marina Records, who I used to be signed to, and he got me into it. And Douglas and I have talked over a few, let's say, non-proprietary ales about just doing a complete cover of that album at some point. So that's something that we hopefully will do one day.
Oh, I'd love to hear that, because it is an astonishing album, and apparently there's all sorts of stories about it. There's a real obsession with this album in the States. There's websites devoted to it, and it was the only album that Sinatra ever recorded to backing tracks.
Yeah, that's right.
It was done to a live orchestra, but with this, everything was done by, I think it's Bob Gaudio. Was in the Four Seasons.
Italian guy.
And in fact, we're going to play a Four Seasons track later on in the show, but it is an extraordinary piece of work, and very, very moving when you listen to it.
Yeah, because it has a, it's a whole piece, all the songs are related to each other, and I recommend it to anybody if you can get your hands on it.
Okay, well, give folk a chance to have a wee taste of it. From 1969, this is Frank Sinatra from the album Watertown, and For a While. Sinatra released that didn't scrape the top 100 in America. With me is Graham Skinner, who's got it in his head, along with Douglas McIntyre, to record a version of that whole album. I tell you what you should do, actually, Graham, is you should do a live gig. Do the whole album live. That would be something. And it would go down a bomb in Glasgow, because people love Sinatra in Glasgow.
Yeah, well, that would definitely be part of it. So it's one of these things that I was just saying, when you say you're going to do something, then you have to do it. That's the best way to get something done, is just to say, we're going to do that. And somehow or
Absolutely.
other you find a way to do it. So you've set that ball rolling again, so that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Fly Nancy over. She'll do a couple of duets with you.
Oh well, she follows me on Twitter, so.
Fantastic. And speaking of gigs, what about gigs for the Skinner Group?
Yeah, we've got a gig coming up on the 16th of May, which is exactly 28 days from tonight. So that's
You say that with the tone of somebody who knows there's a lot of practicing to do for that gig.
Yep, I've started.
Where is it?
It's at Oranmore.
Okay.
Top of Byers Road, for those of you who don't know Oranmore. It's
Okay.
a nice wee gig, really good.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. Now, I wanted to ask you about Surfer Girl, which is the track we're going to play now from the album, because there's a video, an exceptionally good video, on your website and on YouTube to the song, which looks as though it was one of the most uncomfortable videos to film that I think I've ever seen. You better fill us in about
It
where
was
it
a
all
little
happened.
bit. It was a little bit. It was filmed partly in Troon Beach, Barassi
It looked
Beach.
like Troon. It
Yeah.
did look like Troon. I was brought up in Troon. That looked like Arran in the distance.
Yeah, could you see Aaron? I thought it was just grey in the back. It was October, and it was all that part was my idea because I was
Just to give people an idea, most of it is either you grinding your face in wet sand or up to your oxters in very cold sea.
yeah, because I was slightly obsessed with this film called Acatoni, which is an Italian neorealist film about a pimp in post-war Italy, and there's a brilliant scene in it where he's at the very bottom of his journey, and he just wets his face and grinds his face into the sand, and then his face is all covered in sand. And I thought that looks amazing, and I thought I need to get that into something, and this seemed like the perfect vehicle for it.
Well, you see, the interesting thing was that you went to Troon. I mean, did you research types of sand? Because
Well, because that sand is a lot more chunky.
it's coarse sand.
Than the sand that was in the Akatori film.
This is not Mediterranean
Yeah,
sand
no.
we're looking at here.
Yeah, but the Mediterranean was out with our budget, I'm afraid. But I think we could have probably, if we'd went out to, I don't know, the West Coast, we'd probably, like Skye or somewhere like that, would have got a nice beach. But once again, out of the budgets.
No, you can't beat Troon. Absolutely, it's a fine place.
I love Troon.
Well, listen, thanks, Graham, for coming in. I know it's late at night and really appreciate it, but it's a great album and people can download it from iTunes. It's called Back on the Horse. And we've got one more track we're going to play from it, the aforementioned Surfer Girl.
Thank you.